Have you ever been sitting in a bank manager's office, watching a stranger slide a folder across the table and say, "We're going to need you to explain these signatures," and realized in that exact moment that someone you loved had been slowly destroying your life for years? No. So let me paint you the picture. It's a Thursday afternoon. I've just driven 40 minutes to First Commonwealth Bank in downtown Pittsburgh, wearing my only blazer, because today is the day I finally get approved for the $180,000 business loan that will let me expand my bakery from 1 location to 3. I've spent 6 months preparing this application. My credit score is 741. My revenue is documented. My projections are airtight. The loan officer, a man named Gerald Foss, looks at me over his glasses and says, "Miss Naeem, I'm going to be direct with you. There's already an active loan in your name at this institution, taken out 14 months ago for $95,000. I blinked. I said, "I'm sorry, what?" He slid the folder toward me. There it was. My name, my social security number, my address, my signature. Except I had never signed it. Before I continue, if you've ever had someone steal from you using love as the cover story, please stay with me, because this story doesn't end where you think it does. My name is Rania. I came to Pittsburgh from Lahore in 2014 with a culinary arts certificate, $3,400 in savings, and my grandmother, Nani Zubeda's recipe book, handwritten in Urdu, stained with turmeric and rosewater, held together with a rubber band and prayers. By 2019, I had opened Zubeda's, a South Asian bakery in Lawrenceville. Not a restaurant, not a fusion place, a proper bakery. Cardamom cakes, pistachio barfi tarts, sheermol with cultured butter, kheer served in little clay pots. Pittsburgh had never seen anything like it. The first year was brutal. I slept on a cot in the back. I washed dishes at 2 a.m. I delivered custom cake orders in my 2009 Civic with the passenger window that wouldn't fully close. But by the end of year 2, 4.9 stars, a wait list for weekend orders, a write-up in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette that called my cardamom pound cake quietly revolutionary. I was proud, more than proud. I was proof. That's when my brother Kamran arrived from Karachi. Kamran is 3 years younger than me. He is the kind of person who fills a room when he walks in. Tall, charming, endlessly funny, with an easy smile that makes strangers feel like old friends. Growing up, every auntie loved him. Every teacher forgave him. Every boss gave him one more chance. He arrived in November 2020, officially on a tourist visa, unofficially fleeing a situation in Karachi that he never fully explained. Something about a business partner, some missing funds, a disagreement that had become uncomfortable. I didn't ask too many questions. He was my brother. He was here. My couch was his couch. By January 2021, he was working at Zubeda's. I want to be careful here, because what happened next was not all bad. Kamran genuinely worked hard those first months. He was charming with customers in a way I was too tired and too flower-dusted to be. He organized our social media. He convinced me to start a pre-order system that increased our monthly revenue by 22%. He also started asking questions. At first, they seemed normal. How does the business account work? What's the payment processor? How do loans work in America? What do banks look for when you apply? I answered everything. He was my brother. He was learning. I was proud of him. I didn't understand then that he was taking notes. Our mother called every Sunday from Karachi. Amma, who raised us alone after our father passed, who worked 2 jobs for 15 years so Kamran could go to business school and I could go to culinary arts, who had never once complained in our presence. One Sunday in March 2021, after I just finished a 14-hour shift, Amma called and said, "Rania, beta, you have to take care of your brother. He's struggling. He has nothing. You have so much." I looked around my 600 square foot apartment. I thought about the $18,000 I still owed on my original equipment loan. I thought about the fact that I'd paid myself exactly $28,000 the previous year. So much. But I said yes, because she was my mother, because he was my brother, because that's what you do. I want you to hold that. I trusted him. By mid-2021, small things started to feel wrong. A vendor called asking about a late payment. I checked the account. The payment had gone out, but $800 more than invoiced. Kamran said he'd paid the wrong amount and the vendor would credit us next cycle. He never followed up. I forgot to check. A supplier called about an unusual order, 3 times our normal quantity of specialty ingredients. Kamran said he'd been experimenting with scaling recipes. I said okay. He sold half of it to a restaurant supply contact I'd never met. I found out 4 months later, by accident. In September 2021, I noticed our business credit score had been pulled 3 times in 60 days. I asked Kamran. He said it was probably routine. He was lying. Each time I found something off, he had an explanation, and each explanation was plausible enough. And each time I decided to believe him, I told myself it was because I was reasonable, not because I was afraid of what happened if I didn't. I'm gonna pause here, not for drama, but because when I say I silenced my instincts, I need you to understand that's not weakness. That's what love teaches you to do when someone uses it against you. If you've ever talked yourself out of knowing something because knowing it would break something you weren't ready to lose, say something in the comments. We'll talk about it. Back to that Thursday afternoon in Gerald Foss's office. I sat there staring at my signature. That looped, slightly irregular R in Rania, the way I've signed my name since I was 17. Except it wasn't quite right. Close, practiced, but not mine. When was this taken out? October 14th, 2022. October 14th, 2022. I was in Lahore. Amma had been sick. A brief hospitalization. Nothing serious in the end. But I'd flown out for 2 weeks. I was 7,000 miles away. Kamran had been running the bakery in my absence. Kamran had access to my business files, my identification documents, my account login. Kamran had asked me the week before I left to sign a stack of vendor renewal forms because it'll be easier if everything's pre-authorized while you're gone. I had signed them without reading every page. Gerald Foss was still talking. Something about identity theft protocols, the fraud department, mandatory reporting. I heard the words, but they were far away, like someone speaking through water. I thought about my brother's easy smile. I thought about Amma saying, "You have so much." I excused myself, stepped into the hallway, and called the one person I knew would tell me the truth without softening it. My Nani Zubeda's oldest friend, a woman named Farida Khalil, who had been a chartered accountant in Lahore for 40 years and who had zero patience for anyone's nonsense, including family nonsense. She listened. She didn't interrupt. When I finished, she was quiet for exactly 4 seconds. Then she said, "Beta, how much do you know about why Kamran really left Karachi?" He said it was a business dispute. It was a fraud case. A former partner filed a complaint with the FIA. I heard through Zahida's son, who works there. Kamran took out loans in the partnership's name without authorization. They settled privately. He left before it could become official. Why didn't anyone tell me? Because your mother asked them not to. She was afraid you wouldn't take him in. I leaned against the wall of First Commonwealth Bank and tried to remember how to breathe. Farida auntie, did Amma know what he was? I think your mother has been choosing not to know for a very long time. I drove home from the bank. Kamran was in my kitchen, eating leftover biryani, watching cricket on his phone, completely unbothered by the universe. I set my bag down. I sat across from him. The bank called me in today. Oh yeah? About the expansion loan? About the $95,000 loan you took out in my name in October 2022. His face went through 5 expressions in 3 seconds. Surprise, calculation, injury, anger. Then, the performance. Wanya, don't. Don't do the face. Don't do the explanation. I know about Karachi, Kamran. I know about the FIA complaint. I know what you are. He put down his phone. I was gonna pay it back. I had a plan. You had a plan in Karachi too. That was different. Where is the money? Some of it is gone. I had some bad investments, but I still have about $40,000 that I can... You stole $95,000 from me, Kamran. You forged my signature. Do you understand that's a federal crime? He stood up, voice sharper, almost wounded. Almost. I'm your brother. I'm family. What are you gonna do, call the police on your own brother? What would Amma say? And there it was. The card he'd always had. The one he'd been counting on. What would Amma say? I thought about Amma's Sunday calls. He's struggling. You have so much. I thought about Farida Auntie's voice. She has been choosing not to know. I thought about my Nani Zubeda's recipe book, held together with a rubber band and prayers, and how I'd built everything from that one inheritance. And then I said it. Pack your things. You have until tonight. I reported it. I know some of you are wondering if I really would. I did. I filed a police report. I filed a fraud report with the bank. I hired an attorney, a woman named Sarah Kowalczyk, who had the kind of calm competence that makes you feel like the ground is solid again. The investigation took 4 months. What they found was worse than I knew. Kamran hadn't just taken out one loan. He'd opened 2 credit cards in my business name. He'd redirected 2 months of our payment processor deposits to a secondary account he'd created. Total damage, approximately $127,000. Over 14 months. He'd been systematic, patient, careful. He'd learned the system, my system, and used it against me. When the detective told me this, I sat in Sarah's office, and I thought, he was good at this. That was the most heartbreaking part. Not the money. The fact that he'd put this much effort, this much intelligence, this much patience into taking from me, when even a fraction of that energy directed honestly could have built him something real. I called my mother when the charges were filed. She cried. She bargained. She said, he's your blood. She said, this will destroy the family. She said, why couldn't you just help him quietly? Why did you have to make it public? I listened to all of it. Then I said, did you know about Karachi? Silence. Did you know what he did before you sent him to me? I thought it would be different here. I thought you could steady him. I said, you sent me a wolf and told me to feed it. She called back 3 days later and said she was sorry. It wasn't the apology I needed, it was the apology she was capable of giving. I'm still deciding what to do with the distance between those two things. I'm writing this from the second location of Zubeda's, a 1,400 square foot space in Shadyside, Pittsburgh, with warm terracotta walls and hand-painted tile I sourced from a Pakistani ceramicist in Philadelphia. The expansion loan came through. A different bank. My own name, my own signature, my own credit, rebuilt carefully over 18 months. Kamran pled guilty to wire fraud and identity theft. He was sentenced to 26 months and ordered to pay restitution. Most of the money I'll likely never see. My mother and I talk. It's careful, tender, complicated. She visited the bakery last October and cried when she saw Nani Zubeda's photograph on the wall. She touched the frame and said she would be proud. I said, I know. That was enough for that day. I started therapy. I started asking myself why I kept quiet every time something felt wrong. My therapist calls it loyalty override. When your sense of duty to someone is so strong, it overrides your own perception of reality. I'm working on it. I also started teaching quarterly workshops at a Pittsburgh small business incubator, specifically for immigrant entrepreneurs. I teach them how to protect their business identity, how to structure access controls, and when to trust their gut. I teach them what I wish someone had taught me.
If you're watching this and you have someone in your life who takes from you using love as the justification, I want you to hear this clearly. Love does not require self-destruction. Loyalty is not the same as silence, and family is not a blank check. The most generous thing I ever did for my brother was hold him accountable. Not because it helped me. It didn't. Not immediately. But because every time we let the people we love harm us without consequence, we are telling them